At that moment, I was sure this customer just wanted a discount. At most, he would make a bit of a scene, write a couple of angry reviews, and disappear. I couldn't even imagine that in a few months he would find himself at the center of a criminal investigation and his entire fraud scheme would collapse like a house of cards. I worked as the manager of a small auto repair shop. We weren't a massive service center with dozens of branches. It was a family business that had been around for many years. Most of our customers came to us through recommendations. People knew us as an honest shop where they didn't push unnecessary repairs or try to rip you off over every little thing. One morning, an expensive SUV was brought in on a flatbed. The owner looked annoyed even before he stepped out of the vehicle. He immediately started explaining that the engine had suddenly failed while he was driving. We ran a diagnostic. The results were discouraging. The engine had indeed sustained serious damage. What's more, the cause turned out to be a prolonged lack of oil. Judging by the condition of the parts, the issue had arisen long before the car came to us. We showed the customer the photos, the diagnostic results, and explained the situation in detail. The cost of the repair was high. The man was clearly unhappy, but in the end he agreed. All the paperwork was signed. We ordered the parts and got to work. The repair took nearly 2 weeks. Once the car was fully ready, we invited the customer to pick it up. That was when the trouble started. Instead of paying, the man suddenly claimed that the engine failure was our fault. At first we thought it was a misunderstanding, but it only got worse from there. He started claiming that he had never agreed to that volume of work. Then he said his signature on the documents had been forged. After that, he demanded we release the car for free and compensate him for emotional distress. We were shocked. In front of us lay the signed papers. We had recordings of the phone conversations. We had photos of the car before the repair. We had statements from our employees. But the customer kept insisting on his version of events. A few days later, we received a letter from a lawyer. The letter contained threats of a lawsuit. It claimed that our shop had supposedly pushed unnecessary repairs and was unlawfully withholding the customer's property. But the real blow came later. One morning, my acquaintances started calling me. They were asking what was going on. As it turned out, a segment about our shop had aired on the local news. The report told the story of a poor customer who had allegedly been scammed by dishonest mechanics. We were portrayed almost like criminals, yet none of the journalists had even contacted us before running the story. The reputation we had spent years building began to crumble right before our eyes. Some customers canceled their appointments. Negative reviews appeared online. People were discussing the situation without even knowing the facts. I was furious. I wanted to respond publicly. I wanted to record a video, start arguing in the comments, and prove to everyone that this man was lying. But one of the senior employees gave me some advice. He said, "Don't argue with him. If he really is a scammer, this isn't his first time." That phrase changed everything. Instead of fighting online, I started digging into his past. At first, just out of curiosity. But the deeper I dug, the stranger the picture became. I found court records. I found complaints from other companies. I found mentions of several insurance disputes. Gradually, a pattern began to emerge. Almost everywhere, the exact same scenario repeated itself. The customer would receive a service. Then he would accuse the company of mistakes. He would threaten them with lawsuits. He would demand compensation. Sometimes it ended in payouts. Sometimes companies preferred to settle just to avoid a scandal. But the most interesting part was discovered later. An employee at an insurance company agreed to speak off the record. He told me that this man had already appeared in suspicious insurance claims several times. Formally, there hadn't been enough evidence at the time. However, many details looked extremely strange. After that, I realized we weren't just dealing with a difficult customer. In front of us was a man who might have been using the same scheme for years. We started gathering everything, absolutely everything, every letter, every document, every recorded conversation, every review, every publication. The work took several months. At one point, the archive of evidence occupied several thick folders. The more information emerged, the clearer the picture became. There were similar stories in different cities, different companies, different types of services, but the same man and the same pressure tactics. That was when we made a decision. We didn't publish the materials ourselves. We didn't launch an online witch hunt. We didn't try to destroy his reputation. Instead, the entire archive was handed over to professionals. Some of the documents went to the tax service. Another part went to the Association of Insurance Companies. The remaining materials were sent to law enforcement. After that came a long wait. Weeks passed, then months. We almost stopped thinking about the story. And then one day the phone rang. An investigator informed us that the materials had been extremely useful. It turned out that several insurance companies had already been conducting their own investigations. Our archive helped link many separate cases together. What had previously looked like isolated incidents suddenly came together into a single, cohesive picture. A full-scale investigation began. It soon became clear that the scale of the problem was much larger than anyone had imagined. Investigators uncovered dozens of suspicious insurance claims, forged documents, fake damage, false claims about repairs, attempts to collect payouts for events that never happened. The investigation went on for almost a year. Throughout this time, the customer continued to act as if he had nothing to fear. He was still publishing accusations. He was still trying to portray himself as the victim. But the situation had already changed. Now, he was the one being questioned, and he had fewer and fewer answers to give. When the case finally went to court, the volume of evidence was overwhelming. Witness testimonies, financial documents, insurance reports, correspondences, expert evaluations, materials from different regions. A story that started with a single engine had turned into a massive fraud investigation. The sentence was severe. The man was found guilty on multiple counts. He received real prison time. His business virtually ceased to exist. The insurance companies filed additional civil lawsuits. The financial consequences were catastrophic. And what happened to our shop? The most surprising thing was that over time, the truth did eventually come out. The very same journalists who had once run the accusatory segment were forced to publish a retraction. Some outlets apologized. Our regular customers supported us. Our reputation recovered. We even received compensation for some of the damages. But the main lesson of this story wasn't about the money. If we had reacted with emotion to emotion back then, in all likelihood, nothing would have changed. If we had started arguing online, the conflict would have only escalated. If we had tried to retaliate directly, we could have been accused of harassment. Instead, we did the only right thing. We gathered facts, we verified the information, and we let the evidence speak for itself. Sometimes the best revenge is not striking back. Sometimes the best revenge is simply turning on the light. Because many scammers exist for years only because nobody sees the full picture. And when all the puzzle pieces finally fall into place, the truth does the rest. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you like this video, leave a plus below. And if you have any ideas on how I can improve my videos, feel free to share your feedback. Your suggestions help me make better content for everyone. See you in the next video.